Some regrets are like chapters in a book that we never had the courage to write. But what if the story isn't over yet? Today's lesson is about second chances and the courage to start over. Stay with us to dive into this moving story and use every moment to improve your English fluency and vocabulary. At the Foundry Café, retired Walter's routine was always the same: coffee, newspaper, and the silent observation of life in Cold Spring. But inside him, a shelved dream that seemed to have been left behind haunted the tranquility of his mornings. Mia, the young and perceptive owner of the cafe, was the first to notice. As she served Walter's usual coffee, she commented with a smile, "You spend a lot of time here, Walter. I'm not complaining about your company, not at all, but I can't help but wonder. It seems you always know everyone else's dreams around here. But what is your dream?" Mia's question hung in the air, simple and direct, cutting through the fog of Walter's memories. He looked outside at the busy street of Cold Spring, and for an instant, he didn't see the cars and the people. He saw the ghost of a store that never existed. "My big dream," he began, his voice low, "was to open a bookstore right here in Cold Spring. Not a big, impersonal store, but a refuge. A place with worn leather armchairs, the smell of old paper mixed with fresh coffee, and shelves filled not with bestsellers, but with stories worth discovering. A place for the community, for conversation, for calm." As he spoke, he took out his wallet and from a hidden compartment pulled out a small piece of paper, yellowed and fragile. He smoothed it out on the table. Mia looked from the paper to Walter's face, her eyes filled with a silent question that she finally verbalized. "What happened?" "Life happened," Walter concluded, with a sigh that carried the weight of decades. "And I don't mean great tragedies, but the small, urgent needs of each day that added up build a life. The mortgage that had to be paid every month, the sleepless nights with sick children, followed by mornings at work where being tired wasn't an option, the promotions at the job that brought more security, but in return, stole more weekends. There were the soccer games to watch from the bleachers, the unexpected roof repairs, the aging parents who needed care." He carefully folded the paper and put it away, as if storing a fragile relic. Every one of those moments was precious, but each one was a grain of sand falling in the hourglass of the dream. And so, the children grew up, retirement came, and the business plan, with all its notes and hopes, remained perfect, safe, and untouched. A fossil from another life, trapped forever in a drawer. Walter's story lingered over the table, a confession of a dream tucked away in a drawer. He expected a sympathetic nod, perhaps a word of comfort, but Mia, with the practical wisdom of an entrepreneur who built something from nothing, did not accept that as a final chapter. She held a cup, her gaze sweeping over her own cafe, full of life. "Walter," she said, breaking the respectful silence, "do you know the history of this building?" She continued before he could answer. "Before it was the Foundry Café, with the smell of coffee and cinnamon rolls, this place was a blacksmith's workshop for 80 years. It smelled of coal and sweat. When I wanted to rent it, everyone told me I was crazy, that the building was too old, that its time had passed, that it was better to demolish it and build something new." She then tapped lightly on an exposed brick wall behind the counter. But the foundation was still strong. The history in these walls, every mark, every imperfection, that was its greatest asset. The building didn't need an end, it just needed a new purpose, a new story to tell. She turned, and her young eyes, full of a wisdom Walter hadn't expected, met him. "Isn't your foundation strong, Walter?" she asked. "All of your life experience, all the books you've read, all the love for stories you carry, Isn't that your greatest asset? Mia's words about the old blacksmith's workshop stayed with Walter long after he left the cafe. They echoed during his walk home and sat with him in his silent armchair. He looked at his own hands, marked by time, and at the gray hair in the mirror. Too old, he had always thought. Too late. But Mia had shown him another perspective. The foundation was still strong. The history was his greatest asset. That night, for the first time in a long time, Walter's sleep was not haunted by the ghost of regret, but visited by the spark of a new idea. An idea that was not grand or perfect, but possible. He, the master of the flawless plan, finally understood the lesson of the beauty of the imperfect first step. He didn't need a property, a large investment, or his 40-year-old plan. He just needed a single book. The next day, Walter didn't return to the cafe with his newspaper. He returned with a small wooden box, filled with his own beloved books, the ones whose stories had shaped him. He approached Mia at the counter, his heart beating with a kind of hopeful nervousness he hadn't felt in decades. "Mia," he began, his voice a bit hesitant but firm. "Your cafe is already telling a new story in this building. I was thinking, maybe it has room for a few more." Mia's smile was instant and genuine. She didn't see an old retiree with a silly idea. She saw the seed of the dream he had described moments before. "Walter," she said, her eyes shining, "I think that's the best idea I've ever heard. The corner wall is all yours." And just like that, the first page of Walter's new chapter was written. The small take one, leave one bookshelf became the beating heart of the cafe. It was no longer just a place to have a drink, but a meeting point for book lovers, a place for conversations and discoveries. Walter was no longer the silent observer in his corner. He was the curator. He recommended books, listened to people's stories about their favorite reads, and saw, on a small scale, his big dream become a living, breathing reality. The business plan, that fossil from a past life, was replaced by the daily, joyful exchange of stories. The final scene of our parable is not an ending, but a beginning. Months later, Walter is at the cafe, not reading his newspaper, but talking animatedly with a young couple about a novel he recommended to them. He is radiant, energized. Mia, his gaze then shifts to the cheerful friend calling him from the counter. Walter goes over to Mia. "You know, Walter, I've been thinking, and I think it's time for the Foundry Cafe to start a new chapter. What do you think about being my partner and us turning this place into the new bookstore cafe of Cold Spring?" He is surprised when she extends her hand to him, but his heart already knew the only possible answer. Then, with a smile on his face and a renewed energy, he shakes her hand. With a certainty he hadn't felt in decades, Walter knew the story was far from over. If this story resonated with you, leave a comment below telling us, what is the new chapter you dream of writing in your own story? Like and share this video so more people can be reminded that there is always a blank page waiting. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories that help you learn English. Until next time, Mia, honor your foundation, embrace a new purpose, and never think it's too late to start.